we have the Georgy Molodtsov. Hi, Georgy.
Hi.
And we will talk about the Georgy VR experience and how work in the VR space. And for me, it's very interesting how we work with music and how put the public in VR chat and what's going on in technical problem there and how you prepare everything with Jean-Michel Jarre and
Sure.
and please say something about that. I put your video for the desktop.
Right. Well, basically, my journey into VR chat and into immersive worlds started with the Go East Film Festival. I've been curating the Go East Open Frame Award for a few months, or for a few years back in. I've started in 2018 with the Open Frame Award, where we were nominating up to 7-8 immersive projects from the Eastern Europe, and then we were trying to we were organizing a showcase physically in Wiesbaden in Germany, and then the winner was awarded with €5,000 prize. And then in 2020, when the pandemic started, at the same time, I've got acquainted with Vroom, as one of my previous 360 films about Lake Baikal was shown in the VR chat festival, breaking down the barriers or breaking down the walls. And when I've seen VR chat, I figured out it might be a really nice tool to make an immersive version of the Go East Film Festival that couldn't happen in May 2020 or in late April 2020. So we decided to hire a Vroom team and call my friend and also a winner of the Open Frame Award, Denis Semyonov, to create a virtual embassy of the Go East Film Festival in VR chat. Back then it was only PC VR, I think. And we created not even one, but 3 different worlds, one dedicated to Caligari, a film theater, a 100 years old theater in Wiesbaden, and also a rooftop, kind of a collaborative space where we put previews of 360 versions of the films or trailers. So we ask everyone to create a 360 video out of their interactive works, at least some preview recording. And it worked well because we figured out that the community experience when people are coming together and watching together 360 films, and the director can come up inside the sphere and explain as avatars what he intended to do in this film, lower the sound of the film for each one individually, and for us to stream those sessions and discussions with the directors to YouTube. That was really quite an innovative tool, so it helped us to attract much wider audience to the festival, as well as I've been able to call for the jury people whom I would never have physically in Wiesbaden, like Avery from Meta, who is one of the leaders of Meta Horizon Worlds team now, and Maria Rakusanova, whom you might know from HTC Vive work and for Rain Dance Immersive. So it was a great success, and the success we did really helped not only me, but also Vroom. So when they approached Jean-Michel Jarre to create a concert during the COVID, I've been invited to join their team to help with the execution of the concert. So imagine it was live. The first concert was fully live. Jean-Michel was playing in Avatar from his studio, while the world we created had a master instance where only VIP guests were, and where we had a control room to start and end all the elements. And then we had public instances where the hologram of Jean-Michel was playing. Basically, it was a camera from the master's instance that was capturing just Avatar, and that Avatar was streamed as a video player to the public instances. So all those thousands of people who came to public instances can see the Avatar. And the major problem we had is that at some point, the director who directed the physical cameras those 5 camera operators in the master VIP instance, he changed an angle a little bit of the camera that shoot avatar of Jean-Michel. And our shader for the public instances was set for just a specific position of the camera, and we didn't notice it at the proper moment. So most of the public instance people saw just half an avatar actually of Jean-Michel. But in any case, it was working, and it was a nice and successful result. So later on, we moved on to make another concert with room. Welcome to the other side. In Notre Dame. And after that, it led to creation of the Oxymore, a big virtual world that is now visited by over 330,000 people, that got Webby Award, that got a PGA nomination, Stereo Crystal Owl Award, and many others. So for that, we actually decided to create the whole universe based on the music of Pierre Henry, inspired by Pierre Henry as kind of legacy, but all the music was created by Jean-Michel based on the interactions we had while creating the world. So those processes were happening at the same time. So, and the last project we did with Jean-Michel in Metaverse was Versailles 400. It was already done in the Metaverse platform Vroom that we were developing. And it was, I guess, as for me, the most beautiful concert we did in a virtual Versailles, while Jean-Michel was playing physically in a real Versailles for 800 people. So I think that's a good way how to explain that we had to go through a lot of obstacles in developing the multi-user social music spaces and concerts, how to make them replayable, how to make those concerts working as a sort of music box after the premiere, because even if Jean-Michel played live during the concerts, we wanted it to be replayable afterwards. That's why Oxymore is still playing, because we had a recording and we changed the world so that people could enjoy the concert by exploring, for example, Oxymore still. And yes, one of the solutions for us was to develop our own metaverse platform to fit all our needs and requirements to run those music and concerts and music events in VR chat. But then the platform was shut down and the company liquidated. However, last year when Jean-Michel played for over 100,000 people live in Bratislava, we used a lot of our assets from the Versailles projects, including his avatar, including many of the elements that were combined into his live avatar. So there was a huge difference for me between making a concert in Metaverse when you're sitting at home and all the rest of your team is all around the world, and doing the live concert when the result of your work on the video mapping walls and on the laser projection is seen by 100,000 people simultaneously live, and you can see their live reaction to your content. So I really love the Metaverse for the accessibility and for the possibilities of interaction between the people who couldn't meet each other physically, but still physical experience is something that creates a much bigger emotion at the moment.
Thank you very much, Georgy. But how you think about the courses practice about the VR, and how you see the next level about VR and augmented reality? You work with AI for your new project, and please say something about that.
Right. Actually, it's interesting that Jean-Michel's he's going to have a new, how to say, he is going to have a new tour this summer all over the Europe. And I think even in Versailles, most of the images on the video mapping were AI generated by Jean-Michel and his team. And it was already sort of a step from the metaverse into immersive AI creation. It's not, as for me, about the metaverse versus AI. It's more about the questions if metaverse has never been a tool. Metaverse has always been a self-sufficient space and self-sufficient experience, while AI mostly is a tool to make those experiences. So we couldn't put them on the same level of comparison just because they are technological things happening in the world. They are hype cycles or the technological elements, but what metaverse created has a much deeper philosophical and emotional impact onto the people than just AI generations. Something blue there. So I don't have a kind of clear understanding what I'm going to do with AI. I definitely experiment with use of AI for video and animation creation, and it helps me a lot to do things that I couldn't do now as a director, because I'm a film director first, and now as I don't live in my home country anymore, I don't have this access and possibility to work on directing things that I used to do. And using AI actually helps me to get this directing hand back in the field. So things I didn't don't have a chance to stage on a real set is much easier to achieve with AI tools, and it brings some satisfaction. It's like it's not treating your hand when you broke the hand, but it's definitely helps you to scratch your hand while it's healing itself.
Thank you. And please, if you have please, if you say something about your under the pillow the project, because you preparing for the.
Sure. For that, I can definitely even change into Kitten Marmitten's avatar in VR chat. Yeah, it's
because
pretty
it's going
slow.
to move the music and the VR conference and the festivals, and you put your
Yeah. Just let me load the Kitten Marmitten avatar. Yeah, here he is. Yeah, so this is Kitten Marmitten. It's a project that actually not kind of a commercial project or not an artistic project. It started with a fairy tale my father wrote me when I was a kid about me and my sister and about us being bored sitting at home. So we decided to make a kitten out of an old stuff that we had around in our room, and that's how we made a handmade kitten Marmitten. And the story is that we were looking for a lot of lost things, so Kitten Marmitten became alive, and he decided to go every night to bring lost treasures and lost stuff of the kids from the old sofa in the room. And when he brought all the stuff, he thought that he would be forgotten. But actually, kids like the idea that Kitten is helping them so much that they started to make a presents to each other secretly, as if Kitten Marmitten did it. And it was like a educative fairy tale my father wrote us to teach us, me and my sister, how to be friends with each other. And he also, because he was a journalist, he was able to start a newspaper page dedicated to Kitten Marmitten, and we received thousands of letters from kids all around the region saying about their stories about Kitten Marmitten, how they make their own kitten, how they make their own vision, how the kitten could look like, or shared questions how Kitten Marmitten could have helped them in their quite conflicted family situations. So sort of child hotline in the early 90s. And then after my father died, I really wanted to make this story into some legacy of his. And as I wasn't in animation, I was in documentary film, I didn't know how to make it. But then after getting acquainted with VR, I really learned a lot how to make it look immersive. So I started with doing the VR game with Belarus, now Polish studio Film Digital. And that game got into Connexar, and getting into Connexar in 21 allowed me to get a budget for an animation film in Unreal Engine that we did in the course. But then animation film or a VR game has a quite limited capacity to be spread, especially when you don't have the tools or promotional marketing budget. So at some point, I thought, as I already had a project in Unity for the VR game, and as I already have an Unreal Engine 10-minute animation film about the same story, why not to use all my experience I got from working with Room into a VR chat world about the Kitten Marmiten? And that's how the Mormoverse world that we created with Dale Deacon from South Africa appeared. It basically utilizes the same assets used both in animation film and Unreal and VR game in Unity, and it starts with us being in a film theater, which is also a stylized kind of world, where you see an introduction to the story, and where you see the idea that you now need to follow the quests to progress through the story. So this is the idea is quite simple. You just put on you just watch the first film, you press the button, and you get into the kids' room. So the first thing you need is to find 5 elements to make a kitten marmiten. When you finish the quest, you go back and you see in the theater the second episode of the film where the kitten is created, and then he starts to go into the journey into the magical world under the pillow in the old sofa. So you proceed after him, you have a chance to change into the Kitten Marmitten's avatar. We actually have lots of them, like 7 or 8 different avatars of Kitten Marmittens in different colors. So people, visitors can select it, and they can definitely become the Kitten Marmitten the way they want. And and then they can definitely be part of the story. And then they travel into the magical world under the pillow, where they can have to solve a few more quests to find, to bring in lost treasures from other places. And in the end, it's just a nice family-friendly story. And as I know, and as I've seen, starting from 2022 and 2023, the amount of kids on VR chat that are not even 10, that are much less, who received meta quests for their Christmas presents, for their Thanksgiving presents, for birthday presents, and also after VR chat became accessible on Android platform using the same quest system, it's incredible amount of people who just have not enough content fit for their age. So I thought that making a family-friendly world will be a good thing for community. And we got actually a Rain Dance Award for that, for Best Immersive Experience or Best Narrative Experience. We got into Venice Immersive Best of World this year, and the world is now visited by over 100,000 people. But we mostly see that, especially I love when people go and post on YouTube their videos how they got through the story, because I see that they are following the story and they are following this narrative path ideally and perfectly. So I'm really happy to have absolutely different dimensions of how VR chat may work as a festival event, as a music experience, and as a simple narrative story. But I don't think that the major bonus of VR chat is not the content, but it's still the community. So I'm pretty happy that VR chat community is really strong and getting stronger. And none other social network has such a strong community, even though the daily visits are not that high as in Roblox or as in other platforms. The stability of community and the level of their dedication to the platform is incredible and has no compare to others. And now I'm gonna hide under the desk to plug in my laptop. 1 minute.
Thank you, Georgy.
Oh, I'm back.
And okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. And the next question is about the experience about VR festivals and how you look the VR contemporary art works and how you see like VR in next 5 years with augmented reality and AI and something like hologram. What you think?
Well, that's several layered questions because I'm both a curator and I'm also a creator. So my works are traveling to the festivals and I curate some events. And I've always treated myself not for some festivals. I try to do a high-end exhibitions and to make it look really technological. But my goal always, as I started with VR Festival with 360 content, is to get people acquainted with VR in a good quality. And for that, the quantitative numbers were coming from 360 videos. And my first festival started in 2016, were about synchronized simultaneous showcase of 360 contents to 50, 60, 70 people. I was happy to be partnered with Samsung, who provided me with Samsung Gear VR and with Samsung S7, S8, S9 phones, depending on the year. And we were able to get some great numbers, like 5,000 people in 5 days. That's incredible numbers for VR. But the content we've been showing there was also incredible too. So my goal was not to sell them just a simple entertainment games or entertainment music videos. It was a award-winning 360 content from all around the globe, as well as we've been doing an educational workshops in film schools to teach film students how to shoot in 360. Those films were not that well budgeted, but they were a nice pieces of storytelling that traveled around the festivals too. And still, even here now in Serbia, we have a, like, today we are finishing the VR caravan with scientific films that travel to 6 cities around Serbia and 1 day in Belgrade. And in every city, we still have lots of people who had never tried VR. So we are happy that by 2025, we have a MetaQuest 3, MetaQuest 3S that can support 8K 360 video. That's already much easier to show without people having a negative emotions from the content being too looking too bad. But then when it comes to immersive exhibitions, this year I've mentored for various immersive Biennale College Cinema twice, and I've seen new projects coming. I've also traveled to some other festivals, and last year I was enjoying the Ars Electronica. I can see that immersive field is definitely spreading out of VR and mixed reality and using it as just one of the instruments of the whole exhibition. So the main discussion we had this year at Venice College Cinema is if we want to create an outstanding artistic piece that includes installation, performance, do we have a distribution model for that? Do we have a possibility to monetize it by providing this experience to wider audiences? And while planning those projects for artistic expression and also to have it being presented on the most prestigious film festivals and exhibitions and museum contemporary art exhibitions, we are limiting ourselves with the level of complexity of the technology and artistic, let's say, expression to a much smaller audience that might actually enjoy the project. So I like mixed approach when, like, my ideal festival, my ideal event is where you have a quantitative zone, for example, 360 zone with many headsets that could give you that could give many people during the event a good access to basic level of the content, basic immersion, basic understanding of how the virtual space limits your ability to comprehend the surrounding that has a lot of informative noise and concentrate you only on the content you see in virtual reality. But then, of course, the same event should have a quality zone where people could experiment not only with the subject of the content, but with the technology itself, meaning that it should combine mixed reality, virtual reality, standalone experiences, high-end VR installations that are not only a piece that you see in VR, but also their environment around is making a difference. So my ideal event should be like this, that we both reach quantitative numbers of visitors with a qualitative numbers of people who learn something new. And of course, the next question is whether those events should be paid and people should buy tickets, or we should find social and non-profit partners who will finance us to make those events more accessible. It all differs from place to place. However, I can say that you need to put the seeds in the ground first, and it takes few years before you can start to create a commercial events. If you will start to commercialize VR and in immersive technologies too early, you wouldn't get the numbers you can get if you would spend few years by growing up your audience to understand what you're going to sell them in future. And I think that's my approach, which I like, and I can see that France, as one of the leading countries in supporting with a governmental public support for the immersive creations, definitely showed the proof of concept when they've been investing into immersive VR for many years. France has become a leading country to produce those experiences that didn't have a quite a stable monetization model. But now, as LBE in France and French company LBE is spreading all over the world, we can see that those seeds grew and now they're bringing money. Unfortunately, as we know, they're bringing money not to the creators people, but to the investors behind the projects. But in any case, we can see that the model worked and people recognize VR as a cultural and social element, not only just a technological, nerdy, gaming thing that US market is trying to present mostly. Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgy. And for me, it's interesting how you look the VR, the world, and everything about the technology. But what you think in VR East, like China, or South Korea, or Japan? Did you have the connection with this area for the VR?
The nice thing is that when we started working on Oxymore, especially, we found out that a huge amount of visitors are coming from Asian countries. Just let me answer quickly. But we never had real numbers. So when we created Mormorverse, and because we had a video player installed in the world, we thought, is there any way to get analytics where are people coming from to visit Mormorverse? Because I've started to see a lot of tweets in Twitter speaking about the way how they experienced in Japanese or in Korean. So then I went into Vimeo where the videos were hosting, and I get into analytics. Unfortunately, I didn't have now amount of views but I actually get amount of impressions. So how much VR chat was downloading my video to show it to users. And the numbers were correlating properly with the numbers of visitors to the world. But that impression actually had geographical information and time information, time zone information, and time when people were visiting and how long they were visiting. And it was interesting to see because we have a progress in the Mormoverse world where you have a first video, then you have a starting video, like the intro video, the first video, and the last video, let's say, in the end. So you can actually track the percentage of how many people who watched the first video went to the last video. So you can see if they progressed well. And then we could separate the countries. So the major focus was that people were coming in groups. People were coming mostly from Japan, and then when we figure out that there is a huge amount of Japan visitors, we made an AI translation of the film and of the content into Japanese. So now when you're going into the world, you have an option of English, Russian, and Japanese. And Japanese audience loved it so much, the Japanese version, even though it was translated with AI. But I asked a Japanese translator to help me to see if the AI works well, and we corrected the subtitles and the voiceover properly. So they really appreciated it, and I had another dozen thousand people coming from Japan just because we had a Japan adaptation of the world. However, most of the visitors for VR chat are still coming from United States. It's mostly Texas, Chicago, and of course the biggest number is from California. And you can see it. Unfortunately, I think in the current version of the world, we are using YouTube because VR chat changed quite a lot, and we don't have a possibility to use Vimeo all the time because of the AV Video Pro thing. We couldn't use Vimeo, I think, or we can, but we don't have any more possibility to maintain the world. We're just trying for it to work. But what we see is definitely tells us that we are in the right how to say track, and that VR chat would get and benefit a lot more if they would provide the same analytics as we usually have on the website and metrics, knowing who are our audience, knowing how long they spend in the world. That would definitely help artists to learn more, to have a feedback from the audience if they don't see it physically in the world. So, of course, VR chat is super popular in Japan, in South Korea, but in China, they don't have VR chat much, and they have using mostly Pico headsets. So to reach the Chinese audience, we have to find another way, not VR chat, and I still don't have a clear answer how we could get to them.
I was wondering about the future of interoperability in VR performance. In what ways will audience engage in VR performance in the future? Will it still be predominantly headsets? Yeah. I know.
So basically, when we are speaking about the performances, there is a passive viewer and passive participation and active participation. So we have this system where you have a passive viewer that couldn't anyhow influence the content, so they might enjoy the. Basically, what we are doing also with Jean-Michel is we are trying to provide the experience for any group access to the content. So if they couldn't participate in VR, we should make a YouTube or TV broadcast. The last few concerts we did in Metaverse were also broadcasted on traditional TV. So people who are not connected to technology could just enjoy the show that is an edit between the live Jean-Michel playing somewhere and the virtual world. Then there is a virtual world that you can enjoy by visiting it in VR headset, but then there is also for VR chat possibility to visit many things in with Android on iOS devices soon. iOS is going to be released. It's complicated, but it's much more tough. And then we sometimes we even do a 360 video versions of our immersive concerts because it's already headset, but it's not complicated when you don't need to do some interactions or use controllers to change the position. So in so many ways, you have many various scenarios how to use the same assets to provide the experience, the performative experience to people, that you need to consider those. And it goes with my previous talk about how festivals should become accessible as well. The same with your performances. You need to find multiple cross-platform ways how to reach different audiences, to provide them different versions of the experience, but that experience would be unique and similar at the same time for each platform. And I think that's also sort of immersive thinking. It's not only about the marketing or outreach, it's also about you as a creator being not limited to one media or to one form, but your ability and your need to speak in a diverse form of formats. And that actually is both exhausting but also exciting, because people might be getting a really different experience from the same content, and you can do one really good but another will be terrible, and people will remember that it's terrible, but it's not good because the terrible would be seen by much more people. So the compromise here is still to be determined, but I think that the major thought here is that we are already in the era of markerless mockups. So soon it will be. It's already here, but it's still not popular enough. But we already in the place when I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to have a traditional, let's say, immersive, traditional performances, let's say on a theater stage, being mocked up by the markerless mock-up system, so that avatars on the stage with the physical audience could have been translated into the virtual environment, into their avatars, and their performance would be quite similar to the real performances. So when you are not getting to be bounded by the headset or by the trackers, and you will be able to perform well with your at least body, that will be stage one. But if the system will develop to read your emotions really well from the camera, and it will be live transcoded to your virtual avatar, that will be definitely the future of performance. And in a way, many theatrical pieces that goes on a traditional stage or in a non-traditional stage, without fourth wall, let's say, they might be easily be brought into some sort of immersive representation live. So I really think that we are getting somewhere there.